So I'm showing an introduction. Albanian ethnography has about 140 different forms of folk costumes, and with more than 500,000 types and variants, which are grouped by gender, man or woman, or for children, by areas in rural or urban areas, or even the south and north of Albania have different elements using in their costumes, folk costumes. Also are grouped by economic level, and also about emotional state of family. For example, if it's a wedding, if it's a death or marriage, engagement, and so on. About collections, in Albania there are a number of public and private institutions that maintain or preserve traditional costumes and traditional objects also. We have the Institute of Culture and Anthropology and Art Studies, which is mostly focused on research, research in family gathering. They are using, for example, in a wedding or engagement, they are using these folk costumes for
the bride wear one of the traditional costumes, the wedding.
So, related to the courses or trainings or internships offered, provided for young people in Albania interested in fashion design of costumes, we have public and private universities, also private businesses. This started from high schools. Students in high schools have the opportunity to learn from in this field. We have also the public university in a college in Tirana and also in Shkodra. Cindy is one of the students in Tirana in textile.
My grandfather was my mentor and my biggest inspiration. As I told you, I've been studying in Paris for 4 years, and then there I had a wonderful professor. So I wanted to give him a present, and I gave him a book about the Albanian traditional costumes. And he said a phrase that I always think about it, that it was to do fashion, you have to know the traditional and to know before where you come from. This was my first show. It was a mini collection inspired by traditional costumes. We were in 3. It was me, it was Blerta Koka, which is a famous, well, she is well known in Italy, she lives there, and she is inspired as well with Albanian traditional costumes. And it was another one girl called Besa, she lives in New York. This time, you know her? Yeah? But I don't know if she's still working on fashion. No. Okay. Yeah, but she was really nice. Well, I was inspired this time with the man.
have any questions for the Albanian team?
Blerta, the hubleta is the whole costume, or the ornaments. The name of the costume, the whole one. The Albanian. Yes. Chubleta, yes. Is it the whole?
First post of
It's the Fashioration.
Okay, not the accessories, it's the whole thing.
Yes,
The
the
whole.
whole costume. Yeah.
Okay.
In Montenegro, it's just part of the costume.
But because in Greek we have this word which is choubleka, and actually it means a lot of things that are hanging. And because you have a lot of ornaments, it must be connected somewhere.
In our country, it's like the upper part.
The upper part
Yes,
here
yes.
with all the
Not
ornaments.
the short one, but it's the longest one because
longest
it's the last one.
Okay, we have to search about this. Okay.
we live in the same region.
Yes.
Okay, Natasha, are you?
Ivana is going to
Okay.
be the representation because
Okay.
she is an expert, but
Perfect.
can we use your laptop because I have a
Costas,
Mac?
yes, but do you have a USB?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. Ah, very nice.
Lala.
Ako želiš da sediš kad pridodaš, slobodno se možeš. Što da ne?
You want some help with the Greek?
Understand this Greek PowerPoint, you see. Okay. It looks different on the screen for me. So, I named our presentation Antelia and Bopanci because we have this traditional folk song, maybe some of you from the around countries know it. And these are authentic parts of Serbian folk costume. For example, on these pictures, we see women's costume from Šumadija. It's central Serbia, central area. And these women have yarns. Of course, Mika already mentioned it, but we'll see some a few words more about. So Serbian folk costumes pose a very important place in the culture and tradition of Serbian people. Its role through history is very important, not only as a symbol of ethnic identity, but also in a form of art and aesthetic values. To this day, most of the folk costumes are preserved from the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. And each area, sometimes inhabited by Serbs throughout history, was characterized by a special folk costume. By the way a person dressed, you could tell where he or she is coming from, and also to which ethnic community he or she belonged. For example, on this picture, here you see men's and women's outfit from Užice, which is my birth town, and all this area in Western Serbia. During the historical development, folk costumes have had multiple meaning in the life of people, but they were also exposed to many foreign influences. In addition to cultural and historical factors, the forming of clothing was significantly influenced by the nature of soil and also the climatic conditions in which people have lived. These clothes were almost entirely handmade by women for their household. This process included everything from the cultivation of plants from which they extracted the textile fibers, dyeing, weaving, mostly linen or woolen fabrics, knitting, tailoring, sewing, and of course embroidering and decorating these finished clothing items. Experience and skills were passed from generation to generation, and interesting fact that I myself learned recently is that textile waste was minimal, because they valued the materials they produced, they put in so much effort to produce. So when they were tailoring those parts, textile waste was minimal. They didn't want to throw almost anything. Pieces of clothing that were worn in the 19th century in Serbia. You can see this picture here. For example, šajkača, it's the hat, a part of military uniform, but also used in common people after the Serbian-Turkish wars. Jelek is the West, we're going to talk about. Anteria is this short jacket underneath the vest, white shirt, of course, pants called čakšire, woolen pants, poja, a belt named tkanica. It's we have. I will show you later. These belts hand-woven, also very characteristic, and socks, woolen of course, embroidered, and opanci. Opanak is the Serbian shoe. We also brought one.
This is just one type of opanci. There
Yes.
are like many versions from different parts of Serbia.
Yes. So jelek is a type of vest without sleeves. Both men and women wore them. The cut of this vest varied from area to area, and it differs in patterns, shapes, material, and details. Jelek is usually made from woolen cloth or plush. It is worn over the anteria or over the white shirt, and it was richly decorated with embroidery, silver or golden thread, silk braids, even pearls. Men's version of jelek is also called fermen. It is worn mostly in Šumadija in Western Serbia, this type of jelek, and it was decorated with braids. A special type of tailor who was specialized in making jeleks is called abadžija, also Turkish word, and the ornaments and the motifs on the vest indicated different areas, but also indicated the wealth of someone who wore it. So the number of braids, I hope you can see on the left picture, the number of braids on the vest reflected the wealth of the family. The women's vest were more lavishly decorated, sometimes even with gold silk, and the men's vest were dark colors and maybe humble decoration. Among the beautiful vests, the beautiful yelecs, the shumadija vests, and the vests from the urban areas of the southern Serbia stands out. This is Anterija, or Anter, is a type of an antique dress, like a long coat, long dress with a deep neckline and wide open sleeves. The materials used were various, from cotton to silk, velvet, brocade. They were usually red or purple in color, with narrow white stripes or small motifs in like pattern. And those with gold embroidery were considered very luxurious. So the tailors who specialized in making only anterias were called terzije, and the origin of this word comes from a Turkish word terzi, which is a type of cloth, woolen cloth. Tailors mostly sued them for a civil population, because in the Ottoman Empire, common people were forbidden to wear them. So this one on the right picture is men's anteria. You can see it's shorter than the woman's. And on the left picture is one of the best preserved specimens in Serbia. It's the anteria of Duchess Ljubica, which is kept in the National Museum in Kragujevac. Opanak, or opanci, are Serbian leather shoes. Over time has become one of the symbols of Serbia and frequent souvenir that tourists take with them when they come in Serbia. It is made of leather, without many laces or belts. It is very well made, very quality shoe. It can last a long time, and it usually has this pointy ending on the toes. But you will see the examples without this pointy end. The shape of the opanak designs the part of Serbia from which it originates. Today's form of opanaks were formed at the beginning of 20th century. It's interesting that there was no difference between left and right shoe. It was the same mold, only varies in sizes. It was made for men's, women's, and children from size 19 to 47. A large amount of leather is needed to make opanak, especially for this upper part, where you see these small leather straps. This part is also the most beautiful and most decorative detail on Serbian shoes, and is completely autochthonous. Decoration of the shoes was made in the past from dog skin, which is soft and suitable for making details, but today goat skin is used. Opanci also differed in whether they were worn every day or on special occasions. Of course, everyday shoes were simpler and without special decorations, but for festive occasions, for example, very expensive and quality and decorated opanaks were worn. Here you can see various examples of different shapes of opanaks. Of course, they vary from the areas in Serbia they were worn and made. And almost every city in Serbia has a collection of costumes, the folk costumes, but the most important and the biggest one is in Ethnographic Museum. This is the picture from that museum in Belgrade. Also, in every bigger city in Serbia has some small collection of folk costumes. And they are mostly costumes from 19th century and the beginning of 20th century. The oldest clothing item in the museum is from the end of the 18th century. And these items are systemized according to the type of clothing items, also according to gender and age. The collection contains the largest number of objects of Oriental provenance, because, of course, in this area, culture, thus the clothing from the 15th to 19th century developed under Turkish influence. So the process of liberation from Oriental influences and accepting European way of dressing was gradual, and it took part in liberated Serbia from beginning of 20th century. This is also a picture from Ethnographic Museum. In the middle you can see the bridal clothes. Mika mentioned it, with the characteristic hat called smiljevac. It got its name by the flowers they were putting on it, because the name of these flowers, this plant, is called smilje, so smiljevac. And today in Serbia, folk costumes are mostly used by folklore dancers and performances, poorly used in other branches of art. Of course, in costume design for theater and movies. We can see them, for example, in the film and series Bad Blood, which was recently on Netflix platform. We have the opportunity to see clothing in southern Serbia in the second half of the 19th century. This is a picture from costume exhibit of these costumes, and this is a frame from the movie Bad Blood. So it's authentic, I mean replicas, but authentic, not a costume designer interpretation. This is, I had to put this photo because it was very fun to me. This is Princess Fallon. She is English, Scottish actually, and she is married to Prince Philip Karađorđević, and she insisted on married in this Serbian traditional outfit. They both were. So we can conclude that the interest of young designers in tradition is modest, but they did not maybe acquire it during school. They developed that love through the family heritage. For the first acquaintance and developing of love for the traditional techniques of embroidery, knitting, weaving, crocheting, tapestry, we can thank our grandmothers who nurtured this family heritage and passed it on to their children and their grandchildren. And it's maybe a phenomena that I've noticed. Myself and my students were often told me that their grandmothers taught them how to sew or embroider or weave. So not their mothers, but grandmothers. It's almost like it skips a generation. And I don't know, I'm hoping that maybe my children or grandchildren will know how to cherish this old tradition. The interest of young designers to learn traditional techniques is great. In schools and faculties are mostly in theory. They learn about it, but mostly in theory. And as well as getting to know other cultures in the Balkan through their costumes, jewelry, and all crafts. And we are hoping that all this project can bring us a better understanding of history and indirectly building peace that we contribute to one of the most important and sensitive topics in the Balkans. So we have a chance to change it in the best possible way through art and culture and to work on the preservation of tradition and peace building in this region. So that's our presentation. We brought you so many stuff. Ferenc is from Pannonian area of Serbia, from north, and Danilo is from the south. So Ferenc brought pictures, photographs actually, of folk costume of his area. Danilo brought opanacs from the south. Ivana, my colleague, brought these two hand-woven belts, women belts, from the western Serbia. And I brought this characteristic, also hand-woven shepherd's bag. Jelek. It's actually a replica of a jelek, not maybe an authentic one, but a very good replica. And since I saw in Mika's biography that she is also a costume collector, I'm hoping you don't have one of these in your collection. Also, a lot of books. Actually, they are catalogs from the Ethnographical Museum, which you all can see.
I think everyone will pass and see also.
Yeah, I think that
yeah.
Here, yes. And
this is my subject of interest in currently. It's a towel, authentic towel, and this is very dear detail to me. This is pafta, part of the belt. Yeah, buckle, belt buckle, and you may have seen on some of the pictures there were two symmetrical paftas on the buckles. And this one, my father dug this out from a ground by accident when he was digging to plant a garden in our summer house. So it's archaeology, I think archaeology, I don't know, specimen. And I'm not giving you this, I'm just showing you. So this is it. Danilo and Ferenc are our young designers, graduated students from two public schools, almost universities, two different universities. And Danilo was one of my former students. So I would like them to say a few words also about themselves, or maybe about something they brought.
Hello, evening. I studied fashion design in Belgrade at the Faculty of Applied Arts. I got my master's degree there. I'm mentioning it just because of one reason. Studying costume and costume history was a really integral part of our studies of the first year. In the beginning, we only analyzed historical pictures and learned how to read them. So that was a perfect thing because in art history we learned about styles and artistic expressions. In costume history, we learned how to read it.
It follows. Costume history is following art history.
We did it at the same time because when you have something, for instance, sometimes it's a relief, sometimes it's a sculpture, sometimes it's a scheme of things, and you really have to know how to read it, how to interpret it, what shows what. So we always, even my mentor told me that the wheel is invented, we cannot reinvent it, but you can bring to the table your own origin, because that's part of your personality, and it does build into one's work, whether he wants it or not. You know, sometimes, even when I did my collections at my college, you could not read the influence. All of this was inspired by this, but somewhere it was there. If I would start talking about it, where it derived from, you would get it. Now, I brought pictures, a few photographs of some of the national costumes from my country. Because of time management, I was not able to bring them otherwise. So I brought two pictures. I will put it on one side. You can share it all around. One of it is a traditional male costume, for which was significant white pants and white shirts made out of cotton. Why was it so white? Some part of it was ventilation. And it always had a wonderful vest to it and small black hats. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Serbia is very characteristic because it had influence from all over the surrounding countries. So we have costumes a la Turca, we have costumes a la Franca, and the beautiful thing about it was, especially in Belgrade, that they coexisted at the same time. There are a few videos of early 20th century that people from abroad came to film Belgrade, and you would see people walking around in Western clothing, and then at the same time people wearing traditional costumes, or even using it together. Now, the second costume that I have from my country, from my hometown, is women's costume. Something that is very, 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 very dear to me is a traditional bridal costume. Also divided. Traditional bridal costume, for which there is one characteristic piece, which is called ubrađaj. It's actually a beautiful veil that was created most often from cotton, but woven very, very thin and embroidered. But what was characteristic about it, it covered the whole face, but was then framed in flowers. Rarely fresh, most often made out of fabric. But sometimes it was even fresh flowers, as I have a piece here. It's from as Ivana mentioned, every city has its own museum and has a collection of national garments. And this one is from my hometown, and it is covered in dried roses. Because each bride, after getting married, she would hold on to this veil and sometimes frame it. She was inseparable. So and I also have a picture of Opanak, but a version from my hometown. Also, all these traditional costumes were also influenced by other things that people did. Some, for instance, like dancing. Also, Opanak varied based on ground, so the soil. Somewhere there's mountains, somewhere it's flat, and so on. And so with the steps, for instance, I danced folk dances when I was a child. And we danced a version of a dance in Opanak in which we had to slide. We were sliding all over the stage, and of course in the mountain areas, those steps were quite different. They would jump. The sliding was not very optional. So I also have a few pictures, just a few, of outfits that are more of people who lived on the countryside, which involved leather, because the winters had a tendency to be harsh. Leather and fur were very much used, and made vests out of leather that were called kožu, or even covered themselves completely in fur to stay warm. And the beautiful thing about my hometown is that it had all these influences. So a lot of these influences come from Hungary, from Austria and also from northern Serbia, so all the parts around. So that.
Hi, again I'm Danilo. Ivana was my professor in Belgrade while I was studying fashion design and textile design. After that I enrolled in master's to study costume for opera and ballet in Rome. So yes, here I am now. I would not introduce much of this because I think it's a lot, but I would say that it's really interesting to study more on these topics because yes, we all did study fashion history and costume history, but I don't think that we were enough focused on Balkan area and all the similarities and differences between the costumes of each country. And I think it's really important, and I think it's really amazing to go deeper and to learn more about it, because I think that's the best way to show how much we could actually respect each other and to learn more. So yeah, that's it for me.
I could pass you these catalogs or leave it here on the table.
Yeah, you can leave them there for a little while.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
exist.
Any questions?
Ovo je najstarija fotografija poznata.
Good morning. I'm very happy that you're here. I'm Nikos Katsis. I am the director of this theater. I am the project manager in Mika organizes everything, and as I can see, it's very fruitful. It's very creative. I'm very happy about this. You are welcome. You are very, very, very welcome here. I hope that you will have 3 days.
3 days.
3 days of worship. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Practical, we will go for lunch now. It's very near. Okay? We have an hour and a half about. We will sit outside. And there's a lot of traditional Greek food which is ready-made. There's a lot of vegetable, anything meats, anything you want. I'm just advising that they know that we have to pay by country and by card and all this technical stuff because you need to tell the restaurants before. But I'm advising you, do not order something that they need to put on the grill because we will be very late. I mean, so there's ready meat or ready vegetables, but if you like a huge meat, that it will take like 20-25 minutes to make. But you can see the food where we go. So and salads and everything is very fast. So we will have an hour and a half, I think, and then we have 2 more presentations and we are done for today. Okay?
We can leave
Anything you want to leave here, we are going to is downstairs, so there's no problem.
Star, VIP. Σαν τον Γκραμτσί, VIP είμαστε. Εμείς είμαστε VIP. Τι να κάνεις, αυτά έτσι είναι. Έτσι, πιστεύω.